Can a parlour remember the weight of a single breath, the hush before porcelain trembles, before a tablecloth learns the shape of a secret? Can a knife meant for roast and ritual feel a hand that refuses to shake, and turn as if time itself were a hinge? Can silence carry more than a shouted word carry? Seasons unparked by mercy and lay them down, one by one, like entries in a book no overseer dares to open. Listen, the Natchez house inhales the river's damp and exhales the dryness of ledges. The year is two-faced. 1831 is harvest, 1857 is reckoning. Between them, footsteps that never wished to echo. Between them, Sarah. Between them, the parlour that learnt to hold its breath. Before we go any further, before the parlours and ledges, before the river learns her name, pause with me. If you want to follow real stories that defy time and reveal hidden truths, subscribe to the channel now and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of our investigations. We return to Natchez in a moment. The lamps are trimmed, the house waits. So does the knife. The house on the bluff refuses to admit the river's voice, yet every board is warped by it. In the mornings, fog rises like unwritten law from the Mississippi, and the geese sketch pale question marks in the sky. The veranda smells of lemon oil, starch, and sermons. China clinks like cautious teeth. The parlour cloth is always white, always ironed flat. An argument against time that never quite holds. In 1831, harvest walks on many backs. It walks on rows of cotton that glitter as if frost had laid a silver grammar across them. It walks through the big house in the quays at Mistress Evelyn's waist, a small hive of metal that hums when she moves. It walks in the hand of Master Whitlow when he touches the skin of the family ledger, and pinches a page as if testing the skin of a child. The tally is a kind of weather here. It drifts down on every life, invisible and heavy. Sarah is 20 then. The house has taught her to be precise. She can lay a table so square that a spirit could use it as a compass. She can fold napkins until they become little sails. Breath of the room fills them, and they remember every name that ever wiped its mouth on them. She knows the weight of a silver knife and the heat of a hearth that never finds rest. She knows where the parlour carpet conceals a seam as thin as a river reed. She knows that a house, any house, belongs first to its noises and only afterward to its people. There is winter here, but it's a southern winter, a performance of chill, a rehearsal for the real thing. Frost draws lace at dawn, then retires by noon. The real winter is the silence between the call and the answer in the quarters. The way laughter never outruns the bell. The bell is a small moon. It makes tides of the day. It moves bodies with a pull that cannot be seen. When it rings for morning, threads sing in the sewing room. When it rings for supper, steam rises from iron kettles like forgiving smoke. When it rings for punishment, the air goes glassy and breaks without sound. Sarah has a mother's voice that lives in her hands. Her mother taught her the patience of hems, the way a skirt tells you where it wants to be mended. Everything in this world is always coming apart, her mother said once, tightening thread between careful teeth. The trick is to learn where to hold it, and how long. Her mother is gone by 1834. The house says nothing about that, because houses don't report the small losses that feed them. They only keep the heat of them under floorboards. The Whitlow parlour is an arrangement of obedience. Portraits hang like judges. A pianoforte naps under a shawl. The carpet blooms with a pattern of vines that never stop crossing themselves. Green prayers that never reach a god. There's a place on the sideboard where spoons line up like silver fish, and Sarah can polish them until they reflect the window's pale dragoon light. Most days the parlour is a theatre after the audience has left. Crumbs of conversation, a dropped glove, the faint perfume of a laugh that ended too quickly. Sarah keeps a ledger of her own, not on paper, in the body's memorizing bone, in the small archive behind her ribs. She files away the sound of a boy taken from his mother and turned into a new name. She files away a winter spent with a heel split open by gravel because shoes were counted like coins and never spent where they were needed. She files away the day a guest judged Carandine, reached without asking and called it courtesy. She files away the hour when Mistress Evelyn refused pain for herself by distributing it among others like slices of cake. She files away the sense of blood forgotten on stair treads, tender as milk. Outdoors, the fields make their own music. Cicadas run a saw over the afternoon, and the cotton bowls open like white knuckles relaxing at last. At dusk, lanterns drift along the rows, each a lonely star forced to recite its brightness to the ground. In the quarters, lullabies contain more wind than words. The night teaches a grammar of survival. Speak softly, move evenly, share the little. An old woman prints stories on children's scalps with the flat of her palm. So you don't lose your history when they make you wash. By 1840, seasons had thickened, so had debts. Crop failures are measured in bodies. The ledger has a way of leaning as if it were a man who has eaten well and means to eat better. A new overseer arrives with a laugh like struck tin. He believes, as such men do, that cruelty is a form of order, that the world can be made straight if you bend enough spines. Sarah learns the parlor's weather perfectly. She knows that a rainstorm changes conversation into chess, and that thunder invites confessions that never bloom into apologies. She knows which window snags the sunset and holds it a moment, so that whoever stands there is lit like a portrait, gilded and false. She is entrusted with blades. She could sing their edges like a tuning fork. She could tell you which blade wobbles and which one stays true. She does not speak to them. She listens. The years walk. They pretend to be different each time, but their shoes are the same. I learned to count without numbers. The house taught me. It said, count by rooms, count by breaths, count by all the times they used your silence as their mirror and liked what they saw. When I was small, my mother braided mourning into my hair so tight the day could not undo it. Don't give them your voice, she said. They will spend it. She had a scar where a ring had torn her. In the kitchen, in a year no one memorized but us. She pressed my palm to it. This is the interest, she whispered. The principal is larger. The ledger lives behind my breastbone. I store pages in the space where laughter should be. Every entry is plain, no flourishes. I do not write humiliation because it is a long word that thinks too well of itself. I write a chair pulled away when I began to sit. I write a plate taken, given to a dog, and the dog lowering his eyes as if he apologized and could not help me. I write a name unmade and remade and unmade again until even the echo of it got tired. Once I saw Mistress Evelyn cry. Her baby had a fever and the doctor's coach took too long. Her tears were like pearls that refused to be strung. I watched them, and I did not hate her then. Sorrow is true wherever it lands. The baby lived. She thanked God and her husband and the doctor and the linen. She did not thank the woman who held the child upright while laudanum did its small, guilty work. I put that on the ledger, not as blame but as balance. The overseer, Mr. Dunn, prepared the world each dawn as if it were a trap he had set himself. He carried a watch that he loved more than any living thing. He would take it out and smile at it. I saw that smile only then. For him time was a pet that obeyed. For us time was a dog that bit and would not let go. When winter came and the frost traced lace on the sills, Mr. Dunn's boots stamped patterns across backs and into stories. I learned how to tighten thread around a wound so that the skin would remember it was a door, not a wall. A boy named Elijah used to hum kitchen songs with me while the kettles fussed. He could make weeds sound like a choir. In 1846 he was sold in rain. Men write rain into poems. They never write the way it erases footsteps that a mother wants to follow. I swore then that my ledger would not be a book that closed. It would be a sail. I spoke rarely. The house made me an expert. Silence is a blade that you sheathe in your mouth so you don't cut the wrong thing. Words can stumble and bruise a plan. Silence can climb a staircase without waking the smallest board. When they said, "Sarah, do you understand?" I treasured the question's foolishness. Understanding is not what they feared memory. Mistress Evelyn had a habit of touching the parlour knife to test its shine. She would lift it to the lamp and show it the flame, as if asking which of them burned better. "A table is a little kingdom," she told a guest once, "and I am its law." The guest laughed and did not see the pity in her boast. I polished the knife and saw my face in it, oiled by lamplight into a stranger I was learning to. A blade does not forgive, but it can be persuaded to wait. I wrote an entry for every winter cough that never got to become a doctor's bill. I wrote an entry for the man who came with pamphlets and left with nothing because Mr. Whitlow scowled and called him a Methodist. I wrote an entry for Mr. Whitlow himself, who kept the ledger as if it were a Bible written about him. He would lick his thumb and turn a page the way a priest lifts a host. He believed in columns. He believed in the equal sign like a promise he had made to himself, that the world would always come out to his profit. In 1851, my mother's old thimble cracked on the inside, an invisible break that opened my finger as neat as a letter. The blood beated, polite and astonished. I pressed the wound to the parlour cloth while I was alone, and lifted it quick one inward rose, the faintest stain, hidden beneath the lamp base. I left it there, a petal nobody would name. I told myself the house now owed me an explanation. Houses never pay, but they do answer. By 1854, the parlour had learnt my weight. It stopped complaining when I walked. The pianoforte knew my measure. Its lid would not creak for me. The silver recognised my hands and kept its fingerprints to itself. Mr. Whitlow's hair thinned. His voice did not. He developed a cough he pretended not to count. Mistress Evelyn learned to look away while punishments happened, as if that could untie her from the rope that was her convenience. Mr. Dunn's watch ran slower, then faster. He beat time like a drum. I began to carry the ledger differently, not like a weight, but like a map. A plan is a season you build by hand. You plant hours in furrows and pray for their quiet harvest. The parlour has 3 doors, one from the hall, one from the dining room, and one narrow servant's entry behind the damask curtain, a door that thinks itself a secret. The rug has a seam east to west hidden by vines on the pattern. The sideboard is slightly uneven. A folded rag beneath the left foot corrects the world. The lamp chimney smokes if the wick is trimmed too short. The window latch sticks in damp weather and surrenders in dry. The knife, 13 inches overall, 8 of blade, silver handle engraved with a vine that wants you to hold it higher than you should, so that your wrist tires early unless you move with intention. Its balance favours the hand that believes it has a right to judge. Its reflection lies. It makes faces generous that are not. I learned its shift, the little pivot where gravity asks a question. I practised with cloth only. Turning, not stabbing. Then patient, then neither. The trick is not the hand. The trick is timing, and the knowledge of how rooms breathe. I watched wind. On wet days the curtains clung to the idea of the window, refusing to billow. On dry days the river's mouth opened and shut, and the house's breath moved like a beast asleep. Voices carry differently in July. The word now can sound like no, and the word mercy can evaporate halfway to an ear. I waited for the world to help. In the kitchen iron taught me patience. A pot boils when it wishes, not when commanded. If you press heat upon it, it will spite you. If you court it, it will perform. So with people. Mr. Whitlow boasted more in company, less in private. He liked to show how the silver marched because he believed armies existed for him. Mistress Evelyn managed pity the way some women manage perfume. Dab never poured. Mr. Dunn's watch faltered at exactly 8 minutes after the hour when it was about to rain. This last detail would become a hinge. I stitched an apron with a second lining, a pocket that lay against the body like a vow, not to smuggle anything sharp. That is a story men tell when they want to prove they can imagine danger. No, I smuggled quiet things, a length of thread waxed so it would not snarl, a square of cloth pre-fold to stanch, a key to nothing, only to teach my fingers that they could find a lock in the dark, a single button that belonged nowhere in this house, polished smooth by worry until it forgot its coat and learned my palm. I practiced the parlour's distances as if I were learning a psalm. From sideboard to lamp, 3.5 slow breaths. From lamp to chair back, 2. Chair back to window, 4 if you are afraid, 3 if you are ready. I trained my feet to tell the truth about boards. One sang, avoid it, one kept counsel, trust. A storm season opened. The river threw up voices. There is a night in every year when thunder is not a sound but a population. The house trembles in such weather and pretends it was only brushed by a sleeve. That night was not yet mine, but I traced it with my tongue, a letter I would someday send. The ledger's entries changed tone. I began to add small mercies, a cup of milk shared, a baby lifted while a mother slept 2 minutes longer than allowed, a hymn half hummed when Mr. Dunn passed out of earshot. Mercy is not the opposite of vengeance. It is vengeance learning to read. In 1856, Mr. Whiplow grew uncareful. Men who have eaten too much certainty forget the shape of hunger. He kept the ledger open on the desk, and I dusted around it with a feather brush that knew its own treasons. Names stack strangely when you look sideways at them. I saw figures meant to be invisible to me, moving like numbers do when they are proud. There were columns that did not add, unless you included the weight of a woman's sigh or the price of a ruined salad. I counted the cost of a child telling himself a new name each night, so that nobody could steal the right one in the morning. I reconciled the book with the breath in my lungs. I found the balance. It was red. The day arrived unremarked by anyone else. A dinner for neighbours, rain brewing, the river higher than consent. They would gather in the parlour before the meal, touch the knife without knowing, tease the piano into making the room forget what rooms were built to recall. I set the table with the slow care of a stonemason. Salt cellars, water glasses that chimed like a muted bell when they were set down too firmly. The knife lay like an unsentenced word. I turned it slightly toward the lamp so that whoever lifted it would see themselves and not me. I told the storm my plan, not with words. Storms are not literate, but with the way I opened the window an inch and then another, and then none. I asked the curtains to help. They were willing if the rain would just begin. I courted Mr. Dunn's watch by glancing at the mantel clock as if late. He followed clocks the way men follow flattery. Mistress Evelyn moved softly, a cloud that had learned a woman's posture. Mr. Whitlow was a man who liked to be recorded. The neighbours brought laughter wrapped in their own importance. They left their humility under the wagon seat. I wore the apron with the secret pocket and felt poorer for it, as if bravery were theft. The button warmed against my hip, the thread whispered against its wax. I reminded my hands they were a book that would not be burned. Thunder negotiated with the roof. The lamp flame nodded, undecided whether to praise the night or argue with it. The piano emitted a note like a question someone is afraid to ask. The time approached, 8 minutes after, which meant the watch would misbehave, which meant Mr. Dunn would tap it with his nail, which meant the house would give me a small, unguarded breath. I did not carry hatred into that breath. Hatred burns quick and leaves a bald field. I needed a crop. When the hour came, the parlour collected a hush as if it had been waiting to show me it could. Thunder posed itself in the distance, not a sound yet, a silhouette. Mr. Dunn tapped his watch and frowned. Mistress Evelyn guided the ladies into chairs with a smile that begged to be believed. Mr. Whitlow told a story about land as if land could be comforted by grammar. The neighbours partitioned themselves into men and women and boasted or sympathised according to custom. I moved in the room the way a river moves, not straight but decided. I set down a dish, I lifted a cloth, I attended a glass that preferred attention. The knife waited, patient as a calendar. When Mistress Evelyn's hand reached for it, I was there with the sideboard's decanter. "Allow me," I said. 2 words, the only ones a table grants me when guests watch. She smiled and abandoned the blade. It lay in a brief orphanhood. I touched it then, not to take but to turn. The pivot is gentle. The world notices nothing. A blade angled toward a lamp tells a different truth than a blade angled toward a face. I gave it back, its reflection of light, not of people. The rain began then, like a congregation who had lost its place and decided to hum the rest. The curtains breathed, the window remembered how to speak. Mr. Dunn's watch stuttered on schedule, and he withdrew from company to scold it near the mantel. Mr. Whitlow's cough arrived and was ignored. A guest's laugh climbed too high and broke a rung. The room reassembled itself around the sound, like soldiers around a fallen flag. I asked the carpet not to betray my foot. It obliged. I crossed from lamp to chair back, 3 breaths. From chair back to window, 3, ready. The knife lay on the cloth, a silver possibility. The lamp's halo dulled as the storm bullied the air. Darkness does not fall in a parlour, it is poured. Mistress Evelyn called my name. "Sarah," just that, a little question that the house swallowed. I turned, the knife turning with me, not up, not down, but along the seam of the cloth, a silver comma that offers a sentence its breath. The motion was not violent, it was deliberate. The blade found a path between lamp and hand, and found, too, the long ledger that had been writing itself on my bones for 26 years. I will not tell you of blood. I will not instruct you in harm. Those stories are already told too often and too hungrily by those who were never asked to eat them. I will tell you this instead. The room felt a change in its own temperature. Porcelain hushed, unsure if it should ring. The portraits forgot their faces for a heartbeat. The piano held its breath and then let it go. A chair remembered accurately where it stood and was grateful. When the blade completed its turn, judgment had already happened in another place, somewhere without furniture or names. Silence broke not like glass but like earth when it yields to a root. The act was not a flame, it was a ledger line, straightened, the figure balanced, the storm, satisfied, loosened its jaw. Hands flew, as hands do. Cries rose, as cries will. The watch stuttered so badly it told the wrong day. The lady stood like lilies snapped by a boy who never learned the cost of picking. Men said each other's names as if that could conjure explanation. I stepped back and let the room finish its work. Houses do justice poorly, but they record well. There is a moment after judgment when all the sounds in the world belong to nobody. The rain claimed them first, then the river, then no one. I placed the knife on the sideboard as if it were porcelain after all. I smoothed the cloth that had kept my secret. I closed a window that had been a co-conspirator and thanked it without words. I stood in the place where my mother's invisible rose once bloomed and felt it open again, this time with a scent only I could name. Someone said, "What?" and never found the end of the question. Someone else tried to lift time and wear it like a shawl, but time shook itself free. The lamp chimneys were clouded with their own breath, the storm thinned to a finer thread. I walked out of the parlour, and the parlour did not follow me. It stayed to practice the retealing. In the morning, rumour tied a ribbon around itself and called it truth. Neighbours came with umbrellas and pity, with indignation and pastries. The newspaper sniffed the story like a dog uncertain whether it had found a bone or a stick. Words were printed that had never met me. Servant, girl, incident, unfortunate, for undeny it. Within the house, the piano was suddenly very clean. The portraits pulled their shoulders back and refused to be expressive. The carpet tried to grow a new pattern over the place where the night had placed its foot. Mistress Evelyn kept to her room, where curtains practised privacy. Mr. Whitlow found his voice in company, and mislaid it in solitude. Mr. Dunn wound his watch until it feared him, then loved him again, then feared among us, who sweep, who mend, who cook, who sing when permitted. The story travelled differently. It did not use adjectives, it used temperature, texture, time. The night was wet, someone said near the kettle. The rug held. The knife moved like a thought. The house changed its mind. We did not use my name more than necessary. Names are coins out here. Spend them and you should expect nothing back. Children memorize the news by pretending not to listen. An old man said grace and added nothing to it, which was how we knew he understood. A girl at the pump stopped, mid-stroke, her arms a statue of labourer's pause. She did not ask, and so I did not answer. When you build a silence properly, it does not crack when walked upon. The newspaper found a hymn for the dead that it thought would flatter the living. It printed a call for order, then an advertisement for a pianoforte. It placed the two near each other so they could gossip in the margins. Preachers preached, law talked to itself in polished voices. The river carried what the law said, and rinsed it until only the nouns remained. None of them could say the sentence I had written, because it was not a sentence, more like an erasio that left good paper behind. Mr. Whitlow made gestures toward the hanging of a culprit the world would not find, but he had accounts to settle and cotton to pretend to love. He settled for locking drawers that contained nothing I required. He dismissed a cook, a footman, a hand in the stable. Men often think that justice is a harvest they can reap by scything too widely. The fields shrugged and grew. In the quarters, the ledger in my ribs reshelved itself. Some pages were lighter, one was gone entirely. I did not sing more, but I slept longer. I dreamed of houses that had learned to apologize, and of knives that retired to become ploughshares. Dreams are not promises, they are rehearsals of mercy. There were whispers of a detective from New Orleans, a man who believed in feet and mud and questions that embarrassed the mouth. He came, he looked at doors, he put his ear to the piano as if it could replay last night for him. He walked the rug as if rugs confessed to men with clean hands. He left with a cigar gone out and a report that matched the weather more than the truth. The story went walking among plantations. It shook hands with other stories, borrowed their boots and returned them better used. It visited kitchens and parlours alike and took different shapes depending on which room it occupied. In the courthouse telling, it was a caution. In the riverfront telling, it was a boast. In the quarters, it was a psalm without a preacher. A month passed. The parlour pretended to have returned to itself, but the piano lost a note it never found again, and the lamp smoked whenever someone lied near it, and a certain chair always faced east no matter how you turned it. The house had decided to remember. Years will sand the dates. Someone will call it 55 or 59. Another will swear it was Advent. Another will say the storm had ice in it the size of teeth. I let them. Legend is the river's logic. It bends until it finally learns where it needed to go. They will name a woman, Sarah, and they will give her more faces than she ever had, because a truth that travels must wear many masks. They will make of the knife a sword. They will make of the parlour a battlefield. They will make of the silence a choir. I will not correct them. I don't own the tale. I only balanced it. Sometimes, on certain rains, the Whitlow parlour grows watchful again. A current of air works under the cloth and lifts it like a breath. The portraits grow uneasy at their own frames. The piano lid creeps the width of a sigh, as if to check whether anyone is listening properly, and someone new to the house, or just too young to be warned, will touch the knife and see not themselves but the lamp, and learn that light can be a mirror that refuses to flash. Children will dare each other to step across the seam in the rug. They will swear that when they do, a hush falls heavy enough to press them down, and they will laugh to push it away. A woman cleaning the lamp will pause at nothing in particular and lay her hand on the chimney, not to steady herself, but to console a thing that once saw more than it wished. At Christmas, a guest will ask why the east chair faces east, and will be told a lie that satisfies no one, which is the mark of a good house truth. In the quarters, the old songs lengthened by a bar. Somebody adds a line about knives learning their letters. Somebody else adds a line about ledgers turning pages by themselves. The song grows a refrain that is not a threat, only a remembrance. Hold what must be held, release what must be judged. When it is sung right, you can hear a seam in the world pull true. And I, Sarah, grow older in the manner of rivers, by quiet theft and patient gift. I keep the ledger where I always kept it, but now it is a thin book. I add entries only when the day requires witness, and has not found one among the people. I record an act of mercy as carefully as I once recorded harm. The book does not close. Long after my bones have left this place, it will remain propped open on a shelf nobody can see, in a library built of breath and ash, and certainty and change. What was done in the parlour is not a lesson. Lessons point. This points nowhere. It is simply an image that refuses to die, a silver blade turning like a second hand, a woman's wrist steady as a vow, a lamp that decides it will tell only the truth from now on, and a house that at last admits it can hear the river. Listen, the night holds a pencil between its teeth, the ledger is unfinished, the door remembers how to open without sound. Footsteps move from one year to another, 1831 to 1857, because time is only a room with many parlours, and some knives learn to turn themselves. The story ends the way a river ends, not with a period, but with a mouth.